You know that sleek device you might be watching this on right now? Or maybe the one in your pocket? It feels so simple, doesn't it? Almost like magic. But the journey it takes from just a pile of raw materials to your hand, well, that's one of the most complex logistical feats on the entire planet. So how do they actually do it? How does this one device get from a factory floor to you by the millions all at the same time? Okay, let's dive into this incredible global machine. We're going to peel back the layers of Apple's supply chain to figure out how they pull off these massive coordinated launches year after year. It really is a masterclass in how to run a global operation. All right, first up, Apple's global production web. To even begin to understand it, you just have to appreciate the sheer scale we're talking about. This isn't just one factory, not even close. It's this massive, sprawling web that stretches across the entire globe, a perfectly timed symphony of manufacturing and logistics. And to give you a real sense of that scale, just look at this number, 43. That's how many different countries Apple sources components and materials from. Think about that for a second. You've got specialized parts coming from Japan, from the United States, from South Korea, all of them constantly in motion, all heading towards one central hub. And that central hub? Well, it's China. China is Apple's undisputed manufacturing powerhouse. Now, a lot of people just assume, oh, it's about lower labor costs, but that's not the whole story. The real secret sauce is the vast, tightly interconnected ecosystem of suppliers and infrastructure that China has built. It allows for a level of speed and scalability that you just can't find anywhere else in the world. So we've seen the world map. Now let's zoom in. Who are the actual companies, the titans of industry, that are physically building these devices? Because, Apple doesn't do it alone. They rely on this incredible network of highly specialized partners to make the magic happen. And here they are, the all-stars. You've got Foxconn, the main assembler, TSMC over in Taiwan, they make the literal brains of the device, the processors. Samsung and LG for those beautiful displays, Corning right here in the US for that super tough glass, and even companies like Murata in Japan making tiny but absolutely essential parts like capacitors. Each one is a master of their craft. Now, of all these partners, Foxconn is probably the most critical. Their main assembly plant is so enormous, it's actually nicknamed iPhone City. It is for all intents and purposes a literal city dedicated to building one product. And get this, during a new product launch, at its peak, this one facility can produce 500,000 iPhones, 500,000 in a single day. That is the kind of mind-boggling scale required to meet global demand for a new iPhone. Now, let's talk about the brainmaker, TSMC. This partnership really reveals a key part of Apple's whole strategy. You see, Apple's own engineers design the powerful A-series chips in-house. They create the blueprint. But only TSMC has the advanced technology, like their cutting-edge 5nm process, to actually manufacture them. This gives Apple total control over performance while getting to use the world's best chipmaker to do the heavy lifting. So we've covered the where and the who, but the big question is how? How does Apple actually manage this impossibly complex system? Let's get into their strategic playbook, the how behind the whole operation. It all starts with a concept called vertical integration. This is key. Apple keeps obsessive control over the things that create that seamless, it just works feeling. We're talking about the chip design, the operating system, the product design. They perfect the blueprint, and then they hand it off to partners like Foxconn to handle the physical assembly. Next up, they operate on a principle of lean manufacturing. You might have heard this called a just-in-time system. It's all about maximizing efficiency. So components arrive at the factory right when they're needed for assembly, and finished products are shipped out immediately. This drastically reduces waste and the cost of storing mountains of unsold stuff. And finally, demand forecasting. This is where Apple basically tries to predict the future. They use sophisticated AI and tons of real-time data to predict, with pretty scary accuracy, exactly how many iPhones will be needed in London versus Los Angeles on launch day. This is how they prevent those dreaded sold-out signs. But running a machine this size isn't just about strategy. It's also about relationships and rules. Let's look at the ethical and collaborative framework that underpins this entire global network. These are the rules that govern the machine. Apple's approach here is really two-pronged. On one hand, they have these deep, long-term strategic partnerships with titans like Foxconn and TSMC, built on working together and innovating together. On the other hand, every single supplier, big or small, has to follow a very strict supplier code of conduct. And this code isn't just for show. Apple conducts regular, rigorous audits to enforce standards on everything, from fair working hours and worker safety, all the way to environmental protection, like reducing their carbon footprint and minimizing waste. They've even cut contracts with suppliers who fail to meet these standards. And their ambition goes even further. Apple has made this public and very aggressive commitment. Their goal is to make this entire, massive global supply chain completely carbon neutral by 2030. That is a huge promise. So, the system is a masterpiece of efficiency, but it's not invincible. A machine this concentrated and this complex has some inherent vulnerabilities. Let's take a look at the cracks in the armor. The biggest risk is what we can call the China dilemma. All the pros, that incredible scale, the skilled workforce, the established supplier network, they're all balanced against some major cons. Geopolitical tensions, the risk of sudden lockdowns, and just the sheer danger of having all your eggs in one basket. It creates a lot of uncertainty. And these aren't just theoretical risks, right? We've all seen them play out in real time recently. The COVID-19 pandemic caused factory shutdowns, there was a global chip shortage, international shipping got completely logjammed. These events really exposed just how fragile a globalized system can be. So how is Apple responding? Well, they're already making moves to handle this risk. They're actively diversifying. They're shifting some iPhone assembly to India and production of other products, like AirPods, to Vietnam. The end goal here is to build a more resilient, less centralized supply chain that can hopefully withstand whatever future shocks are coming. So, what's the ultimate takeaway from all of this? In today's really unpredictable world, Apple's true competitive advantage isn't just its massive size. It's the combination of that scale with strategic control and the agility to adapt when things inevitably go wrong. And that leaves us with one final fascinating question to think about. As the world grows more and more unpredictable, is it actually possible to build a system that's immune to failure? Or is there a point where a supply chain, even one as sophisticated as Apple's, simply becomes too big to fail?